description of this class, so this was a humanities course. It was a 200 level. So this class will go students' humanities requirements. It was a hybrid, so we met on Mondays for 75 minutes. And the hybrid portion took different forms each week. We didn't actually meet online together, but they had some online discussions. Oftentimes they had to go out and find art. One week they had to go and check out a concert or read a book or go to an art show and have to write a critique on it. So lots of opportunities to get off campus. And then rather than lecturing at them, we did seminars. So we set up kind of like this, and I sat with them and asked a lot of questions. And one of the fun mornings we did a speed dating round, which was really kind of cool. So we positioned ourselves in 2 circles facing each other, and I had different questions, and you would get like a minute to talk to each other about each question, then you move to the next person. So like speed dating, but it was questioning. And it was a good opportunity for us to get up and talk to each other and just really start to feel comfortable, and they enjoyed it as well. Okay, so description of the students. There was at one point 15. One young man had to drop because there was a death in his family. He just got further and further and further. We just couldn't dig him out of the hole, so that's okay. Their majors range from psychology to film and media production, anthropology, elementary education, business management, Spanish. 9 self-identified as male, and then 5 self-identified as female. And then we had 2 students, international students. One was from China, and he's a freshman, and it's his first year here. And then another student from Malaysia. So that was really exciting for me because I have not really worked as a teacher with international students. So that was good for me, and it also posed a challenge for me because reading through some of their work, we had to work together. And I was probably more lenient with them. So I have to applaud their efforts. So this was our guiding question for the first half of the semester. The first day, we just kind of talked about what their arts experiences had been and what are arts. And I kind of took that idea back to one of our doctoral seminars. I don't remember who it was. He used the word, maybe, was it our dean maybe, in his book, Art versus Arts. We talked about this, I think. You asked a visitor, Jesse, why did you use the word arts instead of art? And so we kind of had that. I don't remember who it was. It was last semester. You don't. I remember that discussion. Anyway, maybe I dreamt it. But it was our guiding question for most of the first half of the semester. We explored various arts in the visual and audio domains. And I challenged them to get uncomfortable and think outside the box. And what was really fun about these conversations is that they weren't music students, and so they were coming from at all different angles. So the anthropology major was coming at from like an anthropologist angle, and her studies in different cultures. The business education majors were like, well, we don't get to do anything creative in art, you know. But their ideas changed. And then like the film and media student, it was really interesting because he's like, you know, here I am learning how to make films, but I'm told how to do it a certain way and I don't feel creative. And he's graduating with a film studies degree and making films, and he doesn't feel like he's creating, which could be very telling, or else he's just with his senior slump. So the project. We had a conversation about when they're creative, when do they feel most creative, and a lot of them, and I asked them, how do you create in your various majors? And a lot of them said, well, we don't get to create. Because they were kind of still stuck in this idea of when you're creating something, when you're being creative, you're producing music or visual art. And so I kind of wanted to expand their horizons on that. And so for 1 week, I assigned them, each day they needed to write down something that they were thinking about in a creative form. It could be how they were styling their hair, or kind of taking the lead from this class, like go grocery shopping in an opposite direction. And so it was just to get their minds thinking about how are they creative. And I was really inspired by their sentiment that they didn't feel creative, and I was also inspired by this class, and I kind of wanted to merge the two together. So I told them via a PowerPoint or whatever, you have the opportunity to create whatever. And they were like, their eyes got really wide and they were really excited. And I gave some examples of potential ideas, like maybe do an iPhone art installation or whatever, and have a theme for various pictures. And I thought that they would all do that. None of them did that. I was like, wow, okay, you all have phones, you all take pictures, but none of them chose to do that. And there were a lot of smiles when I announced this project, which made me feel good. They were not like, oh. They were like really looking forward to doing this. So what did they create? They created original songs. There was poetry. There was a live DJ set. There was a hip hop song that he produced on laptops using Pro Tools. There was a candle. There was covers of songs. There was craft art, and then the short movie. So some examples. That was super cool. She made it for me. It's a book that she folded. I should have brought it down. It's a book that she folded to a certain degree. And it was interesting because Athene, she still didn't feel creative, and she called this craft art, and she followed instructions. Like, it wasn't necessarily an original idea, but she came up with the idea to spell out my name. And these different kind of craft arts, you can, I don't know if you've seen this before. I don't know the exact title of this kind of folding, but it's like origami. And there's all different ways that you can fold it to make different things out of books. It's really cool. And I was like, yeah, it's gorgeous.
What book did she use?
I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head.
It's great reading.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And then this was part of a process journal for a young man who wrote a sonnet. And it was just really interesting, and kind of how he went through the different forms. Like, he listed different forms. I mean, there's like 10 pages. And then he has different words and how they rhyme, and then he kind of tells this is like the form that he wants it to go. It's really kind of cool. There's the candle. This was a lot of trial and error, and she didn't light it for us because she found out after she lit it in her dorm room and the smoke alarm went off that she wasn't going to do that for us. And it's what it is dried apples and cinnamon, and it burns and it creates this nice smell and a lot of smoke apparently. I was like, oh God, I'm so sorry. He wrote a song, and Hyung, he wrote a song and sang it to us, and it was in Chinese, and it was gorgeous. And he was so nervous, and it was really cute because he had just started to learn how to play guitar, and he did finger picking style. It wasn't just strumming, and like the whole class was just like amazed. It was really fun. The live DJ set was really cool, and you'll see his process journal in a moment. He didn't actually bring in the stuff. He recorded himself doing the DJ set. And then this young lady did the Sophomore Slump, a comic strip, as a way to process through her entire year as a sophomore. So I chose 3 out of the 14 process journals to kind of look at. You might have to share. Would you like to see this?
I'll look over to see what she'll.
Okay. It's okay if you share. There's a lot of writing on there. And so they were supposed to do a minimum of 8 entries. So which suggests that they're supposed to work on it a minimum of 8 times. And this was a way for me to see their process, but also for them to be able to reflect and look on their process as well. And so I analyzed it, and this was the hard part for me, because I was looking at it and I talked to Dr. Stauffer about this, I wanted these to fit into a specific model. I wanted this to go into a Model's, am I saying that right? A Model's model, or Wallace's model, or Webster's model, and it didn't work like that. So what I did was on the left side, I kind of put it into stages. You can see that identifying the project, and each person had to go through a different stage. And some of them went through multiple stages. Some of them, well, all of them went through multiple stages, but some of them had to repeat things. And on the right side, I started out like trying to fit it into a Model's model, and then I just gave up because it didn't work like that. And you'll notice that for all three of these, Cody, Carly, and Sergio, they all started out with something. They were all trying something. They like got to a really good point, and then they decided to scrap it and start over 100%. So I created this nice fancy graph. Ooh. And in here is what they all kind of did similarly. And then of course Carly and Cody, this was what they were both concerned about their peers' perceptions of their projects. They both noted, especially Cody, especially like she emailed me multiple times and she's like, I don't know, what do you think people are gonna think? And I'm like, just own it, just do it, girl. And then Sergio and Cody, they both did songs of various, but you know, Sergio was doing a live DJ set, but he also had to pick out songs, but at the same time, Cody was performing a song, but she also had to go through the process of picking out a song. Carly and Sergio, I think their elaboration took the longest as to like, they picked out what they were gonna do and then it took them a long time to actually get to the product, whereas Cody, it took her the shortest amount of time. Cody went to friends to ask for advice. She called up one of her friends who was a music person and who had sung in choir, and she's like, I don't know what song I need to do. And her friend, and so she Skyped with her friend, and she played her both songs, and then her friend said, oh, you should do that Taylor Swift song. And Cody's like, okay, I trust you. So that's kind of cool. Carly did a painting, and she actually utilized some of the exercises that we engaged in the class to facilitate creativity. So we did a little bit of the Torrance test. We did a little bit of the, here's a music stand. How many types of things can you create out of that? We found this one game called Shiritori, which is a cool game. Like, for instance, I'm going to write a word. Sorry, Mr. Eighth Notes, you're just going to have to deal with this. Just give me a word. Any word. Blue? Okay. What's a word that starts with E?
Everything.
Everything. What's a word that starts with G?
Glue.
And then so on and so forth. So you're just like, you're adding on words, but you're using the last word or last letter, and you're just starting to think of words. It's kind of cool.
It's a Chinese thing in poetry, yes?
Well, I don't know if it's in poetry, but we watched we watched lots of TED Talks, but there was a Chinese toy developer that used this game, and I found a version of this game online. It's super fun. So we put together all of this, and I found it really interesting that they really only had a few things that were similar, but the main thing I thought was really interesting for these three and a couple others is that they totally started over their projects. They like got all the way done and they looked at it and they're like, no, no. So I found that really telling and I think very important as well. So there was no true match, I thought, between a student's process and the models they looked at. And the closest model, I think, may have been a Model's and Webster's, if I were to say that these fit sort of a model. And I think the reason is, well, I guess I'll revisit Wallace's model. So this is very linear, right? It starts here, it's there. There's not, according to this model, there's not room for starting over. And then in incubation, according to Wallace and Chicks knee high, is when ideas churn below the threshold of consciousness. And they didn't write in their their journals. Well, at this point, I was incubating, obviously, but I think there was a lot of hands-on brainstorming. But it was a conscious level. It was at a conscious level, but they may have been thinking about it subconsciously, but they didn't write about it. So, and Wall's model obviously suggests that the creative process is linear, and Csikszentmihalyi wrote that this model is misleading and the creative process is not so clean. So that Csikszentmihalyi says that a lot of times you go back into incubation multiple times and it might take longer than you think it's going to take. I mean, if we think about our projects for this class, I mean, how much time did we kind of spend thinking about and going back and how are we going to do this project with our students? Certainly not linear. And so, I don't know if this isn't really great, but here's a Model A's model. And what I really like about this is that you get to the outcome, and it's kind of like you choose your own adventure. Attainment of goal, yay, you end. No reasonable response, failure, you end. Or some progress towards goal, and you get to go back and work some more on it. I have to close this. Musical ADD kick in. But it also, she acknowledges the fact that there are other motivators to help the creative process. This is social engagement, I think. And then this is Peter Webster's. I think this is his most current model, and this is off his website. And I really like how it just circulates over and over. Now this is thinking process in music, but I'm going to take liberties with it and kind of apply it to this as well. So I think those were closest to what these folks were experiencing. So I'm also really interested in motivation, and I was really moved kind of by what a Model A said about creativity killers such as surveillance, evaluation, judgment, reward, and competition, especially for this project, and that intrinsic and extrinsic motivations can work together, and Dr. Stauffer wrote so nicely. Intrinsic motivation is conducive to creativity. Controlling extrinsic motivation is detrimental to creativity, but informational or enabling extrinsic motivation can be conducive, particularly if initial levels of intrinsic motivation are high. And I think a really great example of that,
It's a terrible
Well, I liked it, I put it in here, so. But I think a really great example of that extrinsic motivation helping the creativity process is with Cody talking to her friend to gain some insight. And so I really found Cody's whole process really interesting. And what was great about Cody is that she came in and sang for us and played guitar. And I asked her, I said, wow, you look like a natural when you do this. How long have you been doing this? She's like, I haven't done this since I was a freshman in high school. So that was really cool. That made me feel really good that I was able to give these students a safe space to come in and make music on their own. So for this project, I kind of broke down the two motivations. The external motivators, the project was assigned for a class. There would be a public presentation, and there was a 2-week time limit, which was not nearly enough time, but that's what it is. And then the minimum of 8 journals. And then the second week of the projects, the students shared in partners, kind of like how we do in class. They spent about 5-10 minutes just sharing what they were working on and getting feedback. And I think that was really beneficial for them. And then the intrinsic motivators, I think they had a choice. I didn't limit. There was no grading criteria for the project. And the students had the opportunity to share their personal hobbies. I thought that maybe some of them would have really gone out on a limb to try something new and exciting, but they kept it safe, but they also did things like performing on their own that maybe they had never, ever done in public, like Cody coming in and playing guitar and going through this crazy thought process, and she came in and she sang her heart out, and it was just really cool. So I think the main takeaways and implications. So starting over, again, I keep talking about this. This happened for so many of the students. And I think that's really important in terms of being an educator and that we need to acknowledge that it's not a linear process and that our students, we need to allow them time to start over and give them that maybe just allow them to process things. And then many students shared with me how much they enjoyed the freedom to create, what they wanted, knowing that the idea behind the project wasn't necessarily about the quality of the product, but that it was the process, because we had been talking about the process, so. It's kind of cool, and then this is my working bid. Yeah, it was fun.
Nicely done. Nice.
Any
Any questions or comments?
questions?
So interesting what they did.
It is. It is. And today they gave their final presentations, and just from the first time they had to give presentations to today, I mean, just, it's just really cool. I told them that. I'm like, wow, you guys, you're awesome.
It's a cool thing.
It was fun.
Lovely.
All right, thank you.